Welcome back to Mixed Up. I'm Emma.
And I'm Nicole.
And we are back with another episode of Book Club with, you know who it is, it's Candice Brathwaite.
She is a best-selling author. She is a style icon, cultural commentator, and TikTok agony aunt. We are so thrilled to have Candice with us for Black History Month. We haven't touched on therapy that much, but I was like, these are the things I'm learning about that have gone way back to being Esme's age. And I was just like, I can't believe, it's almost like I'm annoyed with myself that those are the reasons that, you know, I am the way that I am, or the habits I've developed or whatever, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with arguments or anything, my self-esteem. But it starts at that, and you see it. And that's the thing, like when you see her, I'm just like, that is incredible. That's incredible work. That's the work, though.
It is the work. And the thing is, again, I'm not going to BS. She's seen the shouting. She's seen the, like, up in the face. And to know that she's seen both sides of that now, even in her mind, she might not say it to us, but she might be like, God, they've grown. Yeah. Like, ain't no one getting in any, like, look at them just standing there, using their words to work out what's wrong in this situation. And that took years. It takes years, especially when, like you said, everyone's coming into these collective relationships with their own singular traumas. So now what's so funny is the night before that, I just went for a drive because I was so angry, came home, got into bed. And the next day, he was like, I'm not going to lie, I would have preferred, I couldn't believe he said this. He was like, I would have preferred if you had just slapped me.
Wow.
He was like, something in me is more used to physical trauma than this. He was like, this silence, this you going away to work through your thoughts. He was like, I wanted to be slapped more than anything, because he was like, I know how to deal with a slap. I've been dealing with slaps since I was a kid. It's slap, slap, slap. But for you to walk away and even in your anger still show me respect, he was like, I don't know what to do with that.
Wow.
But yeah,
we're getting into it.
I do feel like we should keep talking about the book. Again, just keeping us back on track. Trying to. But I love, of course, like, I love Sin. I love her. I love.
Everyone's favorite.
I feel like she must be.
Well, for the younger girls, it's Isaac, obviously. But yeah.
Of course. But I love her mum. I feel like what was funny, I feel like I saw a lot of my own dad in her. And I was just like, I felt like she's lucky. I felt like Sin is lucky to have her as a parent. And I really love that. But who was your favorite character to write?
Who was my favorite character to write? Maybe Isaac. Of course, he's really beautiful, but he's my favourite character to write because I understand that for many young girls who look like me reading that book, that's the first time they're going to engage with a character that finds them attractive. And there was something very thrilling about that. I was like, I get to create this person who is telling Sin, who looks like the girl that could be reading this, like, no, you're the best thing. Like, that power, there is some wild God delusion that comes with fiction, mate. Where I'm like, I can do anything.
Yeah, you know what? Just hearing you say that, and I'm thinking to myself, because obviously when we were young, growing up, there was nothing.
There wasn't anything.
There was nothing. So you had to kind of like pretend.
You had
to imagine you 100%. Were in fact the character. So you were no longer yourself. So it was like this weird kind of, like, it was nowhere near yourself. So and the first time I kind of realised that, because I used to love romance. I used to actually love like period romance because it was so romantic. It was just like really, just steamy.
I literally watched Pride and Prejudice last night.
So Mills and Booney, just like layered and
exactly. I want to be, that's the thing, I've always known I wanted to be loved like that. I don't want to be loved like a little bit. I want to be loved a lot all the time. I want all the words and I want all of the gesture. I want everything. So it was only when I watched Bridgerton that I was like, oh my days. they have been doing a number on me, because this is actually how it's supposed to feel when you watch it or you read it. And there's a bit of you in there, and you can actually, you're so much closer to the experience because you're represented. And that's so important. And I didn't realise how important it was until I saw it in what I thought was my favourite type of romance that I'd actually not been enjoying at all, notched up to what it should have been.
This is it. So I thought, if I can once again close that gap, why not? You know, there was no way in hell. And I'm now in a place in my writing career and my offline career where I'm genuinely looking forward to like a Shonda Rhimes-esque career, like production, writing, being on set. And I was like, I don't want to leave space for us to be questioning what Cynthia looks like or who we need to be casting. There cannot be any ambiguousness or shroudedness. We are looking for the blackest of the black girl from South London. There's 1,000 of them doing drama GCSE. Roll it up. Like, no, I don't want it to be like, oh, wait, can we? No. Lovers of this story know what she looks like. They know what Isaac looks like. They know what Thomas looks like. And the visuals of it was so important.
And I want to talk about class and talking about class in the story as well, because again, I felt like I could really relate to Sin just being in a predominantly white environment. But I obviously grew up in a different area. I grew up in the US, and I felt like my friendship group was very much that of like the Thomas and the Mollys and those kinds of vibes. So there is like a layer of, I don't know, I guess like protection that you have to have being around people who are not only white but are wealthy. And again, I never grew up with a sense of lack or a sense of, you know, I never felt like I knew what my parents had to do, and I knew that they were doing it, but they never made me feel like I was asking for too much stuff or, you know, whatever. But I know what it feels like going into people's homes and being like, oh my God, this is something I've never seen. And also what I love about you is that you've been really open about Esme going to private school and learning things that she would have never learned elsewhere, like interests, things I don't even know. As a 34-year-old woman, I was just like, I don't know what that even is. So I guess what I wanted to ask was like, it's been a while since I've been in school. This equity that she's kind of learning about, the class structures that she's kind of learning about, is that something that you're seeing more play out in school itself, or is that more in your home, or is it a mixture of both? How is that looking?
This is interesting. I mean, especially in terms of, I mean, you moved out of London. You made some decisions about what you wanted your life to be and what you wanted your kids' lives to be. Let's bring that.
And it's hard. It's so hard because, again, not only am I faced with the idea of trauma is blackness, it's like, are you less black because you don't live in the city? Are you less black because you took a chance? We didn't have the money when we took the chance. We did that on a hope and a prayer and a couple of loans leaving London. But you took the chance to maybe, and I mean this with all seriousness, extend your son's lifeline. Because that's how London's moving right now. I know it's not the topic of discussion, but it's very much there. The underbelly of London is black boys are going to school and not coming home alive. Is that something, you know, is your blackness tied to you taking that risk? And I'm culturally aware enough to hear the whispers of, oh, you know, Candice has sold out, your favourites live in this life, and I will do it again and again.
I wasn't born to suffer, guys.
I wasn't born to suffer. I wasn't born to be able to take risks that afford my children with more safety and not take them so a stranger down the way won't call me a sellout. Not interested. But what is very interesting is just how universes apart my world and Esme's world is. So like, we recently moved house, and when I say her room is sick, yeah, sometimes I go in there and I just breathe because I'm like, you don't even understand. And like, we were having this conversation. She was like, oh, Mum, you know, when you were growing up, did you have a room like this? I said, girl, I didn't get a bed frame until I was 17. I was like, you see the wood that supports your mattress? I was on a mattress on the floor until I was 17. So let's not even talk about the room. Let's talk about you're on some orthopedic thing.
Yeah. Do you think she can even fathom
She can't.
She can't.
Because she left London when she was like 4.5. So there are little bits she remembers. Yeah. But even then, like you said, Bode and I have always tried, no matter how tight money was, to not make it feel like it was her fault or she's asking for too much. So it's still very shrouded for her. And by the time RJ was born, life had changed completely. I went from trying to finesse a second-hand buggy to having 4 show up at the door for RJ and me being like, I've only got 1 kid, guys. Come and take your stuff back. So RJ's very like silver spoon of the household. RJ comes into London and he's like, fire engine, fire engine. It's a double-decker bus. But my guy's just never lived here. So in his head, that big red vehicle is a fire engine and you can't tell him no different. I had to take him to East London the other day. Why is my son just swinging the iPad like it's a Tesco bag? He was like, do-do-do-do-do. I was like, give me that. He's just like so unaware.
I think that's so beautiful though.
Because he's just born and living in a completely different space. But this tightness between how I was raised and the life I used to live and the one I'm living now, and then let's not even talk about the one I'm reaching for, it gets tight. Because there are sometimes I'm meditating or I've just finished a therapy session and I'm like, girl, the only thing between you and the next level is your brain. It's your brain at this point. It's you not quite believing you're worthy of the next level or getting so hurt and empathetic with those you have quote unquote had to leave behind that you feel like staying in this space is like the middle of the road. It's just me blocking the bag or the blessing or the level up at this point, because I do still feel very indebted to how I was raised and essentially the stories it allows me to tell. Cuts both ways only feels the way it does because there are elements of my lived experience. And I sometimes fear that the further I get away from the Cynthia and the Jadels of the world, how easy is it going to be for me to have this conversation or be taken seriously or seen as authentic? It's still like, but meanwhile, my 8-year-old knows about APR and how I can negotiate the best mortgage deal. And I'm like, oh, girl, you better get out your own way, because...
Meanwhile, Channel Oprah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, you better shift. But it's so difficult. And so for me now, and I'll be honest again, you have to not be worrying about money enough for this to even be a consideration, by the way. So I want that to be like the little asterisk. For me now, my biggest struggle isn't about how black I am, it's my class. And it's how I've been able to maneuver classes that leaves me a bit tight in the chest. It's not so much someone calling me the N-word. It's me remembering what it feels like to sign on and universal credit not hit in time, or make that choice that night we made between Esme's nappies and topping up the gas meter, or only topping up the gas meter by £4 because you didn't have a fiver. It's me still being there, but also knowing that all the tools I have to get to a place where those are never even a worry are right here. It's really uncomfortable.
Do you think, you know, like not having the visceral nature of that feeling, does it ever leave you? Do you think it ever leaves you? It makes you who you are, right?
It not only does it make you who you are, it's an element of fear I show up with to therapy every session. And I've been in this almost 2.5 years, and I wouldn't say she's tired, but she's like, you need to stop learning to fear what isn't actually here yet. Like, I need you to let your shoulders down because every bill's been paid. You're not late on your tax. No one's taken the house back. But when you're so used to lack and being taken from, it'd be interesting. Maybe one day I'd get to ask her, but I bet there's an element of Oprah that's still like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you get to...
Do you know what I mean?
There has to be.
There has to be that gap in the timeline.
In there, but you know what you're describing? Like, it reminds me of... there's certain things that happen to you in your life that you can't... They're always there in the back. It's like grief. Like, what you're describing is... It's a bit like when you lose something. Like, when I lost my mum, I woke up a lot fearful of what was about to happen, even though it already happened. It already happened. It was done. But I was so afraid all the time of this thing that had already happened. And it's like, you can't get rid of that feeling of how it feels when the thing happens. So you're kind of afraid of it for the rest of your life.
And what I don't want to happen, one of the things that I'm trying to work on in therapy, is sometimes that feeling is so present, it's taken away from my joy. And I don't like it. I'm like, but it's not happening now. So why are you in my brain now? We're fine now. Please give me the space to enjoy this period of ease, you know, to have my joy always encroached on by my past.
At least it's the book. This is the two worlds. Like, I love what you did with the book, and there being these two worlds present all the time, you know, in so many different ways. The two worlds of when Sin and her family leave their world, where they have community, they have kinship, they have, you know, people who are like them, and then they move to a very white world where, you know, they don't have that, and it's this clashing of these two worlds. There's the two worlds, obviously, where it's like Sin's world and Isaac's world, and they're not supposed to be in each other's worlds in that way because of what's gone on. Is this a spoiler? Like,
you navigated the spoiler well.
And you kind of use race as a metaphor for so many things. I just found it also interesting, I suppose, as a person of mixed race, this idea of two worlds colliding all the time. I don't think I have a question. I'm just kind of...
No, I get it. And it was important to me that not just to answer anyone's question who's read it and is thinking, not that it's on my to-do list anywhere near in the future, but I've always thought that I want the story to get to a place where race isn't the lead thing. It's just not, because there are other ways that worlds are colliding all the time. And it was important to me then that our love interests were both of colour, because I didn't want this to be a continuous story about will they, won't they, based on... I was like, had a little too much of that, thanks. There are other reasons why people's worlds can't come together. You know, it's not always just as blatant. And sometimes in storytelling as boring as someone being white and someone being black. I was like, there's more here.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. And what about, you know, I loved obviously the friendship between Sin and Jadelle. I want to talk about your black girl friendships, your black woman friendships. What is your favorite thing about
that
those?
Friendship, and also how much of the personal, how much of the experience is in this book and in that friendship?
Wow. How much of that experience? Loads. But they're always changing. So my black girl friendships now, I believe they'll be the ones that go the distance. But the ones prior to that, so like a situation that happens with Jadelle happened with my best friend when she was 15, and her daughter's now 19. Oh wow! So these are, you know, I'm really plucking from. Jadelle is a very real person, not in the essence of what's happening to her as a character, but my first ever best friend at school was called Jadelle, and she was very light-skinned, and she had hair to her bum that her wonderful mum would do in 2 braids, and we were like Batty and Bench, and it was a friendship for the ages. But it was having her as a best friend was the first time I learned so early on about colorism and that hierarchy and all of those. So what we see Cynthia constantly reminding us, that's a real thing for me. Like Cynthia has learned so much about desirability and beauty politics through this very gorgeous girl who is more up to those standards than she is, being her best friend. It's right there all the time. But also what we saw, and I saw this with girls like Jadelle, who I then went on to be friends with, is that because they had what these boys said they wanted on the base level, nothing else was being developed. Nothing else was, because it's like,
and
well,
there's so much beneath that.
So much.
You know, there's so much beneath that, and we, you know, in our book we're exploring, you know, the idea of the tragic mulatto and this, you know, light-skinned mixed race woman who basically is positioned as essentially just a sex object. And that is something that we have found has carried through to this day. And, you know, we spoke to actually Natalie Lee recently, and in her book she explains that, you know, mixed women are basically so disproportionately represented in rape cases. You know, they are the most represented in rape cases. And there's all these things and all these links that, you know, we are still carrying
from
to this.
This is the thing.
And
I wanted us to see that in Jadelle. It's like, is she sexually free or is she hypersexualized? And has she just agreed to this contract from the world that because you look like this is all you're worth, this is all you need to give, and this is the only way we're going to see you? Because what we see in Jadelle's life thus far in the story is, where's her love coming from? None of these boys actually care for her on a deep level. It's just that, oh, if I'm with Jadelle, I've got the prettiest thing, and that's that. And then in crashes Isaac, who is really interested in someone who really, like I said, the way the things are going in my brain, but I was like, I also need that story in schools. Because it's going to make readers, girls of all shades, be like, hold up. Do I even want to be chosen by the man them? Do I even want to be number one in this lineup? Do I want to be in the lineup at all?
Do you know what? And do you know what? I didn't have any kind of experience like that. I think, you know, it's very much an experience that you have if you don't grow up in the suburbs and you are not, because I was the black girl. So I didn't know that I was attractive until
I was the black girl best friend
very late on. I don't even know if I got to be the best friend.
So it's like,
this is the thing,
and it's like you don't know you're attractive until
you don't know.
To be honest,
until there's that, I don't even know what that moment is. The Isaac moment.
But also,
you know what I mean?
You could be in spaces your whole life as a mixed race woman where you're not seen as attractive because you're the other. Like there is still,
that's what it is.
There's that gap as well. So I'm just like, it's not that cut and dry at all. And there is so much I want for Jadelle as we may or may not follow her journey. There's just so much. There's so much I want for her, because my bestie read that book, and my bestie is the same complexion as me. And she was like, no, you're doing Jadelle too bad, man. She was like, I know you hate colorism, but get off her neck.
I was depressed for her.
Do you know what I mean?
I was depressed for her.
I was like, here's the interesting thing though, babe. I said it to my bestie. I was like, how many books have we read where girls who look like us, sometimes that's the root of the whole book, and we never question it. We may get tired of it. We may be like, oh my gosh, it's another trauma porn, but we never question it. And it had to be someone who looked like Jadelle going through those things for my own bestie to be like, rah. I was like, when I listed the books we'd all read together collectively, she was like, oh my God, I'm just so used to that trauma being in my body for me.
Do you know what? I guess I don't seek out books that do that, because when I was reading it, it really struck me, but I didn't think to myself, oh, you know, I always read this in the reverse. Yeah. I think for us, we're often like, well, we just don't see ourselves in general. Yeah. But yeah, I did feel like I feel like you did it a bit dirty. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I was like, this girl's just here to serve sin. I was like, what does she get? But she served her well. Don't get me wrong. She was such a good friend. But I was like, when does she get her? What does she get? Anything?
Also, I feel like, she did serve sin really well. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I also feel like there are elements of Jadelle that wouldn't even exist if someone like Sin wasn't in her life. And the way, again, don't want to spoil it, the way Sin's unit then showed up for her, I was like, okay, this is the level of friendship I understand. Because I remember when my friend got pregnant, there was a baby born in my household like a year before, and everything went to my friend. The buggy, the basin, to what, and like whenever she sees me now, even though we're not that close, she's just still so grateful. I'm like, babe, that was almost 20 years ago. She was like, I had nothing. She was like, I took my GCSEs into the C-section centre, and I remember that. Like, and then she had the baby, and we had to pick up the like, it was dark times. And she was like, the way your unit showed up for mine, I just think it's so much give and take. And I think in so many ways, there's an innocence present in Cynthia that I wanted to be there. I was like, because far too often girls that look like her, that innocence isn't allowed. Exactly. It's like, oh, you know, that hypersexualization.
People think you're much more grown than you are.
But what's so funny is if you're a little bit more mature, so maybe it won't be for the very young adults, but older people, if you read Jadelle's story really well, it's like, that's a baby.
Of course.
That's a baby. Like, who's coming to save the babies? That now is really the question, because they're all children.
Exactly.
And it's like, but they're children that feel like for whatever reason, they can't communicate with adults, or they can't ask adults to come and do their adult job.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cover.
I know. Obsessed. And it was just
so beautiful.
It was just so important to me that it wasn't a silhouette or a dodgy cartoon. That they were real people. And then the universe stepped in. It just so happens that the young woman who did the artistry, I went to school with her, and I went to the same school mentioned in the book. We went to St. Martin's together, same year. So she understood deeply the kind of characters that I was trying to create in my mind. And like, it's just amazing.
And they're beautiful.
Exactly.
They're so beautiful.
Oh, and the high shine, because I didn't know they were going to be shining. They look like they got that good cocoa butter.
They really shine.
I was like, you gave them the high shine.
Yeah. That's what I couldn't quite put my finger on. I was like, what is it? And I'll say it once more. It's the waves for me.
I was like, his trim has to be icy. Someone with all that money. Please don't.
Exactly.
Barber visits at home.
I get barber visits at home.
I see this.
Yeah.
There's literally no black barber where I live. Anyway, that's a different conversation.
But yeah, since we were talking obviously about YA covers, and the trend is usually cartoons, primary colors, you know, silhouettes. You can't see who exactly is being featured and all of those things. So I guess, like you were just saying before, it's really important to know, you know, when do you as an author get to make that kind of call? Because you'll be hearing from people in meeting rooms that this is how it's always done. These are the things that people either buy or are interested in, or this is the market research that is telling them X, Y, Z.
Oh no, they won't tell you the market research. They'll just tell you this is how it's done.
Exactly.
But the thing is, right, is like I was saying, you're chosen because you know what you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you would never have come, this cover would not have come into existence
Of course.
if you didn't brief the cover, if you didn't say, this is the artist I'm bringing, if you weren't specific about what it was that you wanted.
Yeah. The thing is, with my first ever book, I'm Not Your Baby Mother, that was, I think it was 3 days out from being self-funded. I forget the platform, but there was so much pushback on all the books I was trying to write. There's no market for it. You need to make the language more inclusive. We don't think you should be speaking to black women directly. Is there a way to not put the word black on the cover? This was in like 2018, 2019. So this is way before that 2020 moment. So 3 days out from me literally signing the contract with this team who are going to help me raise the money to publish it, in come the publishers, very friendly, and they understood the work in its entirety, but they were also really honest. They were like, we don't have any black people on this floor. We don't have a black edit. We don't have a black anything. And so much of how this goes, we're gonna leave it up to you, because in this case, all we know how to do is press print. Everything outside of that, we've never done before. And I think, again, it was just a stroke of luck, because then when I was hearing from other first-time authors that they're receiving this cover that they hate, I was like, what do you mean? I picked the colours, I picked the font, but they just knew that this was well outside of their comfort zone. And so they were willing to let me lead them. And what that then has allowed is, with every book contract, that's now a non-negotiable, because I know it can be done. I'm like, no, my first book, I got signed off on the cover, so you can do that again and again and again. And I do think there are elements of the book writing process, and I'm still doing this till this day, where you may need to take a financial L, thinking of how much control you're going to have further down the line. And so there are elements in my contract now where I'm like, you can take a couple of bags off if that means A, B, or C. Yeah. Do you know? And not all money's good money.
And that's a really important, such an important point to make.
Yeah.
Because that's talking about future wealth.
Exactly.
And that's talking about future growth. And that's talking about making decisions that mean that you can build later down the line. Whereas I think that, you know, you can get so caught up in, and we've spoken about this privately, for us anyway, or for me, I speak for myself, even though sometimes I speak for us as a unit. But, you know,
you can.
I just never thought that this opportunity would be open to me in regards to writing a book. I felt like I had wanted this for so long, and that I had been shown too many times. It's not going to happen for you. You're not the person that we're going to choose. And when it finally arrived, all I could think was that I had to get it over the line at
any cost,
at whatever cost. And I actually feel a bit emotional saying that, because I think it has been at cost. And we're not even over the line. Over the line.
Well, it's not even out yet.
But you honestly live and you learn. I learned that with my second book, as much as the young girlies, because TikTok has taken Sister and turned it into something else. As much as I love the way the younger people are supporting that book never should have been in existence. I was exhausted. I am exhausted. But it felt very much like, oh, you had such a runaway smash with I Am Not Your Baby Mother. Come on. Chop. But what no one explained to me is that no one wants to promote a book for you year on year. You can't get a serial just like that this time next year. You can't get columns, you can't get interviews. So then I spent 9 months like head down, and in some ways Sister was way more traumatic for me than I'm Not Your Baby Mother, to come out the other end and it's literal crickets. And then I'm looking back at the people that should know what they're doing, and they're like, oh yeah, we forgot to say it's just so hard to get And I learned that, you know, there are some things you're only going to learn the second time round. And so for me, what I've learned with publishing and writing is that Adele space is, it's not year on year. It's not, the only reason this even came into fruition is because the day after I handed the manuscript, the night I handed in the manuscript for Sister, Bode and I got a little bit tipsy and started talking. This idea was formed. 6 weeks later, someone called me and the idea was already on the table. But what I'm not going to do is now try and pull from a very dry creative well just to satisfy the content creation appetite. Because a book is not an Instagram post.
It's not. That's
so I can't be out here just drawing from this well.
Like they think that you can just whip this up.
No. And I'm not, and that's no disrespect to the authors that do, but we had this conversation off, like before we started recording. The reality is most authors who put out a book year on year, that's their sole activity. They are not looking at briefs, they are not hosting podcasts, they're not presenting TV segments, they just write. And so when that's your dedicated craft, 8 till 8, 9 till 5, whatever, of course that's more sustainable. What's not sustainable is being a multi-hyphenate slasher and then expecting to have a Sunday Times bestseller 6 years in a row.
It's not.
But I think that we are all women who put so much pressure on ourselves to be excellent at all the time with everything and to be doing so much.
Because we don't go into it to not.
Well, this,
we don't go into it to not.
This is it.
Yeah, but do you know what you have to do? I'm learning this from my therapist. You have to carve out spaces where mediocrity is the win.
Oh, the tea on this. I mean,
that scares me.
You have. It's so scary.
But you know, but will they let you be mediocre in that space?
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
because mediocre for you.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like maybe not to be paid, but I'm so mediocre at swimming, but I want to learn to swim, and there's no pressure when I get into the pool. There's no pressure when I feel like I'm going to drown. No one's necessarily watching. It doesn't mean the mortgage is not paid. You have to carve out spaces. So I'm not going to lie, a large portion of my mediocrity is in my parenting space. I think more days in the week than not, my kids have Deliveroo.
I would say that a lot of my mediocrity was being white. I was bad at it.
It's got to, you know, it shows up somewhere.
I was bad at that.
And if you don't like start marking out where you're going to do that, it will show up in areas you don't necessarily want it to be.
I think you're being too hard on yourself with that.
I would say that as well, and I don't even know the situation.
I can't speak. I'm like,
I don't even know what to do.
I'm not going to find it now. Yeah, exactly. I just want to like, you know, this is airing. I have to have your back on this one.
No, I mean, I'm being too harsh on myself, but I will say, kind of in the way that you're talking, I mean, again, I'm not in your household, so I don't know how true that is about your parenting, but it's a level of honesty that I feel like I saw happening later on towards the end of my marriage, where I was like, I'm doing work. And this is work that I've tapped out of doing.
I feel like you're doing it to yourself by saying that about your parenting, because there's so much that you've even talked about in this conversation that is beyond, well and above serving your children in a way that many...
That we think.
That's beyond cooking food. It's also, again, we're going backwards. It's tied to trauma, because where I'm from, fighting your spouse in front of your kids is okay, but don't you dare give them takeout more than twice a week. So everything's having to readjust in my mind, where I'm like, no, the takeout is the least. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm having to work out what mediocrity or what not winning means to me. Because where I come from, as long as they're having Saturday soup and they're not eating fish and chips on Sunday and they're going to church and you're listening to John Holt, Mum of the Year.
But we all need to talk about what being maternal looks like, what being a mum looks like, and the standards that we're held to, but what kids really need, you know. And I think that's where I'm like, no, I feel like you're doing it again. You're holding yourself to a standard that actually
And the thing is, before I had my kids, I did say to Bode, I was like, I'm letting you know from the jump, I'm going to be gone more than I'm here. And if you're not willing to fold into those gaps, don't even think about having kids with me, because I already know the kind of life I want and what I won't sacrifice for a child who's not here yet. So let's get that on the table. Yeah. I will perhaps readjust once I see them and that whole maternal thing clicks in, which it doesn't for everyone, and that's a different discussion. But I was like, right now, I know that the kind of universe I want to build for future self, outside of being a mum, means that I can't be on pickup. I can't.
Yeah.
And to my delight, I'm not in the WhatsApp. I can't tell you when the uniform's getting small. I don't know how to decipher the colour coding they do for the school report. So he just writes good, bad or whatever next to it so that I can quickly ingest the information. And I think your support system is so important, especially dependent upon the kind of person you know you desire to be. It's like, I need people who are going to help fold into those gaps. My bestie, she loves to travel. When she's a mum 110, and when she's gone, she's not picking up the phone. So she needs to know that me, Auntie Candice, you don't need to pick up the phone. And I'm not thinking you a lesser mum when you don't. And when she does call me, I'm like, girl, get off the phone. You know she's fine. She don't care about you. Bye. And you need people, especially if you're going to show up as the maternal one, carry the child, be the mum, who are not going to judge you. Because guess what? I know the man them every single day that walk away and don't look back till the kid's 21.
But I think, you know, this is an important moment for anybody listening, watching, because not many people will tell you this. Not many mothers will tell you this. Not many people will be honest about this stuff and about what it takes if you want to have you. If you want to be you.
And the thing is, what I didn't expect, I'd already incorrectly imagined I'm not going to be there a lot. They're going to blame me at some point, maybe not love me or reckon. The love is so overwhelming because, and I almost think it's in direct correlation to me going for me. That when I'm there, they're like, no, mum's home. Yeah. Like, she's not going to be in the computer. Mum is like...
But also, there's no substitute for, I think, a woman and a mother loving themselves. And showing that love for themselves to their children. You know, everyone can fold into that love. But if there's no love there, what are we doing?
You're just empty. And then I never wanted to be that mum, that woman, that person that they go to uni or they move out and I'm just like,
what am I going to do now?
Exactly.
That is my worst nightmare. To be twiddling my thumbs and not know who I am outside of their existence. And in some ways, I learnt that lesson, a bit like in Cuts Both Ways, by tremendous losses felt by mums around me who I'd watched them dedicate their entire lives to their sons, to their children, and then violently their child is taken out of the chat, and on top of grief they don't even know what their favourite colour is because they've gone so in on making. And I think I said this in an interview before, and I tell Esme all the time, and I remember my dad telling me, my dad was like, we occupy the same universe, but you're not my world and I'm not yours. Because he was like, kid, one day my world's going to stop spinning and I don't want you to incorrectly think that we're on the same planet. And now you're just sat there like,
that's what my dad told me all the time. He's like, one day I'm not going to be here.
You know, like, that's such a mature thing to do as a parent, though. Because I feel like my mum brought me up. She constantly pushed me to be independent. She wanted me to be who I am right now. But when I was that person, she felt bad. She couldn't take it because she wanted me to be with her. She wanted me to be by her side and to... I guess she wanted to feel that I was with her there all the time. But she taught me not to be that person. And so I wasn't. But... you have to be a mature kind of parent, I think, to say that from the jump and 100%. To mean it, to really mean it.
And the thing is, for me, it wasn't even mature. I feel like my dad was being mature or maybe just analytical. But with me, because my dad died when I was 20, so I know what it was like to have a parent taken out of the chat really suddenly. And through the grief, all I'm thinking of, he said this would happen though. And so you got to get this thing spinning again, because, you know, you can't just stand here planted, frozen, because he's not here anymore. And I said it in a TikTok recently, in this very twisted way. My dad dying was one of the best things to ever happen to me. And I mean that in a sense of, I would never have attained being the Candice of my own personal desires if he were still here. Everything would have been attuned for his praise, for his liking. I would have become a solicitor. I would have hated my life. Of course I miss him and I love him and I cry about him all the time, but there's a part of me that is so knowing you kind of only live life on your terms, because
well, this is deep, and I think I'm gonna cut this bit out for myself.
I just want my kids to never, they might be like, oh, she's dead, thank God she was annoying, but to me that's better than I can kind of do what I want, you know. And I want them to feel their shoulders relax in my presence. I don't want it to be that from some other plane I'm watching them go, phew, woo, I can now do my thing, because the time, like, it might be too late to do your thing. You might have missed so many ways and opportunities to do your thing, but parenting and ego and not bringing your own parental baggage, that is a discussion for another day.
But we do also owe so much to that which our parents carried, and you know,
for sure,
that's, you know, that's a given. At the end of the day, I know, looking back on my mum's life, that she wanted me to be independent because she felt she suffered all these things as a woman that she did not want me to.
Same. And I remember my dad, when I was 8, I said, you know, Dad, I think I might want to tell stories when I'm older. And he was like, that's so funny. I wanted to be a writer, but I was a black boy born in the 1960s. Like, there was no, we talk about barrier to entry. There was no entry. That's how he felt, or read the room. And so to be not even less than 3 decades down the line, and to see myself now push book deals away, I'm like, oh, I get it. And I'm so grateful for you even admitting to me that that was a point of passion that you were denied, because it makes me greet this work with gratitude and respect. I'm like, oh, I get to do this. You know, that's a feeling that will never leave me.
That's amazing. We know you as one of the OGs, of course. You've been telling these stories on the internet since like about 2015, maybe even earlier. And, you know, since, like you mentioned before, the Make Motherhood Diverse campaign.
I don't think I was on the internet in 2015.
I'm on the internet since the MySpace days, just so everybody knows. These Tumblr girls, whatever they're doing now, I've been there.
Okay, I did have MySpace, but that was university.
I was like, I don't know what I mean, everything comes back around, that's all I'm learning. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we've seen you navigate so many things, and we kind of touched upon this earlier when I don't think we're rolling, but how you've managed some of these difficult moments as somebody who is public facing, as somebody who has this, or I mean, I feel like we feel like a larger than life social media presence. Despite, you know, all these challenges, despite the overexposure, despite the bullying, despite, you know, sometimes I guess things of our own making, but I guess there's lots of lessons to be learned there, I feel like, that we would all benefit from.
And I feel like you allude to having learned lessons that you talk to your therapist about. Just give us some of that. Some of that.
All the usual things, like a great support system, great family, great friends. Also remembering that as loud as the bad times feel, it's maybe 15 people max that have your name in there. Like, you're not that important.
Exactly.
You're actually not that important, and you could be the headline at 3 p.m. and something else has come along at 6 p.m. That's how quickly the news cycle works. Also remembering that no one's going to shout about the good as much as they shout about the bad. It's just a fact. Also, though, being able to connect with my readers or fans in real life, it's just the most mind-blowing thing. I'm like, it's not just this digital algorithm. It's people coming up to you and they're literally shaking with their children, being like, I've learned so much. Or I did a book signing the other day and it was just black woman after black woman who was like, we're seen, we're visible, I see you being loved, oh my gosh. And I'm just like, all of that supersedes the bullying, the noise, but also one of the biggest lessons was, again, those boundaries. And don't not want to put them up because you think, oh, then, you know, I might look this way, or I might, you know, I might miss some good stuff. No, it's all rubbish. And, you know, good riddance to bad rubbish. Keywords, blockers. One of my favourite things on Instagram is restrict. The reason I love restrict is because you think you're talking to someone. You think everyone else can see your chat. But what you have to notice about people who want to cause noise in your space is they are depending on others joining them to get louder. And what restrict does is just put them in a box that they don't know is there. Your comment's there, babe. I don't know why people aren't agreeing with you that I'm a bitch. Like, everyone can see it. And so don't wait. And also, especially as women of any race, we have a really bad habit. And this comes up when people think of things even as harmful as sexual assault. We have a really bad habit of not listening to our instincts in every area. And what I used to do online is someone's profile would pop up and I'd just get a dodgy feeling. But I wouldn't block them because in my mind I'm like, but they haven't done anything to you yet. Stop overthinking it. 9 times out of 10 they were there to cause trouble. And the same way we are learning to listen to our instinct when we're walking down the street and someone's following us and, oh, I don't want to look girl, look crazy, run, scream, shout. Do that in your online space. The minute I come across something and I'm like, you're out of here. It shouldn't be that I feel like you need to attack me or do me wrong.
Before you're deleted.
You're deleted. No. The minute you get that feeling. And with my therapist, it's just being, and this is, I don't even know why I'm sharing this because I'm nowhere near there yet. But the struggle for self-forgiveness. Look, we just went.
I know.
It's just...
It's literally something I talked about.
Again, especially when you're privy to talk and conversation that you are the problem or you're not good enough. Self-forgiveness, forgiving myself for allowing situations to arise.
Oh my gosh, I was literally just talking about this.
Or allowing myself to be in certain situations.
Oh my gosh, Nicole, how much have I been saying this recently? I can't get over it. Like, I think it's just also, but
it's, you can't get out of your head that you should have known better. Being who we are, constantly being on the defensive, feeling like we should allow, again, certain people access to us, or you can't put yourself in the position to be wronged or hurt or whatever.
How could I be so foolish?
How could you be? That's same. I've talked to her about this all the time.
I just think that pressure is crippling. It's invisible, but it's so heavy. How could you not be so foolish? As far as you know, this is your first time here. How could you not be so foolish? Do you have a guidebook?
But how can they be so careless with you?
I feel like the reason why I do it for myself is because I've always created everything for myself. I've been working for myself for a really long time. I've dodged, it's not my first time at the rodeo. That's what I always think to myself. And that's why that's why I'm angry if I'm duped. That's why but I'm not angry with them, I'm angry with myself. I'm angry.
And see, I used to feel like that, but rodeos have horses, right? Horses are always changing. You may know the arena. Do you know what I mean? You know the horses always change. And as you quote unquote level up, be that in your personal space or your business space, that horse has new tricks and new ways of getting what they want out of you. And I can't adjust until I've been taught the game. Do you know what I mean? Till this day, I may, my manager's really good, but I may say yes to something just out of being in that habit because it's a new game. I'm in a new space. There's no one that looks like us. There's no one to tell us don't do that. Every day it's a new game with every opportunity, every contract, every brand. New game. So I can't always reference, oh, you should have known better, or that was like that. Sometimes it's so different. And sometimes they're just counting on you getting it wrong, and then also being so hard on yourself. Instead of being like, you slimy bitch. Like you like you're right. Like you slimy bitch.
But out loud, you know, like you said, one of the things that you do is you don't speak on things.
Yeah, okay.
Is it the right way? Is it the right way?
So I always want to be clear. I always want, because I remember speaking about this on TikTok, and then people rightfully coming back and saying, but what about abuse? And what, you know, you have to, here's one of my favourite sayings, is the juice worth the squeeze?
How can you know?
This is it. And I think, do you know what? I do think we always know. In recent times, I have found that the juice of being seen as intellectual and being aware of the world is not worth the squeeze of getting some things wrong. So I don't speak on certain worldly things because this ain't CNN. Do you know what I mean? You have to check in with yourself. I'm not a broadcaster. The news is always changing. I'm not going to speak on that. When I can see a situation that not only touches me so deeply, but I can empathise with, that as, take for instance, we had the recent killing of another black man in the UK this time. And I went back and forth with that for a few days until I was like, nah, man, that juice is worth the squeeze, because I can appreciate there's a massive different news cycle happening right now, but this is just as, if not in some ways more important. And if all I can do with this space is be like, hi, have you seen this? I will go for it. But you have to, and like I said, sometimes the knowing comes in the waiting. Don't fall into the pattern of wanting to be the first, because you could just be first and wrong.
Exactly.
Now sometimes I'll sit on an idea or commentary for 3-4 days.
You know what? I think we need to move away from the idea of being wrong and right on the internet and move into the space of saying or doing what we think.
What you think.
Is right.
Because guess what? There are some people that have such opposing thoughts to me, but they will stand on it, and I respect that. And there are some things that I'm never going to move on, and I'm going to stand on it. But I think in spaces where you don't know how your words can be taken and redefined or misconstrued, shut up. It's the only reason why I still have a career. There are lots of emails that I've never seen the light of day. And that's not me saying allow them to silence you, but get into the habit of sitting with and silencing yourself. So that when there are lots of women I admire or I know that speak so much that I'm not really listening anymore. I'm just like, oh, but you shout every day. So I'm not really sure which shout is the one that I should give my attention. And there are people I follow that are so measured that, my God, if they stood on a soapbox, I'd be like, no, what time is it? Let's go. I'm not even reading to the end. I'm like, I'm ready to fight with you because I never hear your mouth. And so that must mean that this is a true problem. I could trend every other day. There's something in my inbox every other day where I could be like, tweet, chat. I'm just like, it's not worth it.
Okay, I've got a question for you. You said that you were going into schools to talk about the book. I'm really interested in that experience because I feel like after all the work that you've done, this has got to be something that's up there in terms of the kind of impact you want to have.
Yeah, this to me, going and taking Cuts Both Ways into schools, this is what grassroots means to me. And because I'm the one doing the work, I don't think I ever take the time out to think about the impact. And one of my best friends, Kevin, he said to me the other day, he was like, do you know you're going into school to be someone else's Mallory Blackman? Like someone is going to literally see you in a crowded assembly room. And he was like, in 20 years, they're going to be a published author because they saw Candice and they were like, I can do that. And it literally made me well up, because I can't think of that, because then the work wouldn't get done. Yeah. I show up, I do the work, you talk and you go home. But he was like, you have to remember in this moment the light you're being to other people. And it made me think about the fact that my publishing career begun when I was working in marketing, and at the sales conference I saw Mallory Blackman speak. And I remember her speaking, and then like the Helmsley sisters doing a cooking show after. And I just remembered looking at these people being like, give me some time, I'm going to be on the other side. Yeah. And now those people are a WhatsApp away. Exactly. And I just think, as hard as it's been, as hard as it may continue to be in ways that people will never know, that's the point. That's the point. And that's what legacy truly means.
That's the legacy.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, there was once this writer called Candice Brathwaite, and she inspired me to ... Yeah.
Legacy. That's it. Cut the cameras. Let's go.